Hi everyone, hopefully this is a real quick tutorial video to show you some of the basics of getting started with a larger project. You should be able to download the start files from the link, and when you have that file you can choose to open the project just by clicking on the main folder and choose open project. And that should be added to the menu of the projects that you have currently open. So you can see I've got a couple of them where I've just been testing what it is I've been trying to do and what we're trying to learn from this. So let's start with a tour of the different forms and files that we have. So we should start with the login form, which we're going to manipulate to take us to two different forms based on what type of user is logging in, which will eventually check the details that are stored in a database. So looking at the design view, really traditional, straightforward form we've got here. We've got labels with some text and some colour to make it look interesting. We have got labels, two buttons, and then a J password entry. For these, if you want to investigate about them, you can right-click to see what the text is and the properties, and if you wanted to have custom code on them. So on the J password, we can see it's called J password field 1, just default. It's editable. I've changed the font to this, which we can't really see anyway, and you can see the text name for it, which would appear as a password is actually jfield1, so you want to shorten that to something else, which of course we won't see. We can change that. You can see it's just the default that appears there. We can see here that we've got a JText field to allow us to type things in. Again, change the font on it if you want to go in and change that, make it bigger, smaller, and so on. Feel free to experiment with those. This is the main runnable form, which we are going to, or is already set up to be executable. So if you double click on the login button, for example, you'll see there's some code automatically generated in there. Some things that I've accidentally left in, like the username and so on, but much of this is auto-generated. Here's the code that will execute on startup, which will make the login form the default form which loads whenever we make a program runnable. Then we've got a really simple, again, design for an admin page with one button on it there to add a new student, which we'll make as part of this tutorial to see how to add other forms and make them visible and so on. And then similar but different, the form that I want students to see, that I've got another button in there to take them to home page. Maybe they can change their password and things. We'll just add some functionality to see how we can get it to speak to a database, query and update the data that we have in there. So if we look at the login form and we run our project, hopefully it begins. And we should see our login form, which basically does absolutely nothing at the moment apart from appear in default. Exit button has no code, login button's got no code. We can type in any password we wish as well as any username, but when we click login, nothing happens. So I'm going to exit that for now and start thinking about what we want to do when we are pressing those buttons. So if you need to go back to the design form, let's start off with the easiest one, the exit button. We can click in and we can type in system.exit to kill the full program. When it's running, when we press the exit button, so let's just quickly test that that's working, run it, and it ends the full application. If someone presses the quit button on another page, for example, we may want to do something a bit different, which is what we will look at now. So if we go back to the design form, to the login button, now I'm going to cheat for a second and say, just a note to ourselves for later here, to say if admin username and password is entered, open admin page. So we're going to cheat right now, where we've got the username which we want to get from the text label. So we can set the username equal to, and just check again from the properties what the name of that is. So it's called jTextField username, and that's where we want to get the username that's been entered from. jTextField username dot text dot get text, pardon me, semicolon. So now that's got that stored in a variable that we can access. Now I will update this later. If username dot equals admin, we are going to want to load the admin frame. Otherwise, so else, after update later, password, we'll just let people log in for now. Show student frame. So the easiest one to do first of all is what we want to do when we successfully log in. We want to show the admin form, so we want to create a new admin form, which we'll call AF for short, which is a new admin form. We want to set that visible, true, and we want to then dispose of this form, which will kill the current frame which is open, and then create a new admin form for us. So if we run the application again, if we type in something that's not admin and click login, nothing will happen. But if we put in admin as our username, we can see that the admin page has loaded up, and again we've got these buttons that don't do anything for us yet. So what can we do now? We can do the else part. We could go back here and add in the password check as well. So that's something we'll do later when we're querying the database and checking that the password's correct. If it's not, then, if they click the login button and it's not admin, we want to get the student form. So pretty much the same code, obviously opening up a new form. So fs.setVisible, true, this.dispose, close it down. So now when we test it again, if we use something other than admin, we can see that the student form loads, and we've got some buttons here that don't work. So I'm going to copy paste the admin form, or not the admin form. I'm going to go to the student form and implement these buttons so we can exit this. So when we exit that button, we want, or click the exit button rather, we want to return to the login form. So again, similar code, true, and this dot dispose to allow us to return. So let's just test that. Now the more frames and forms that you have, the more you have to do for this. So hit the login form, working there. Exit button brings us back to here. Test the admin form, takes us to the admin page, but obviously the exit button now not working there. So if we go to the admin form, double click the exit button, you can see we got the auto code generation. Obviously that's going to do the same thing as the previous one we did, so I'm just going back to student form and the source there, and saving myself a few seconds of typing the same code out to return to the login form now. So when we press and execute, login form should start. If we type anything other than admin, it takes us to the student form. Obviously we've got to put some checks in, but when you do the admin form and hit login, it takes us to this page, and when we click exit, we can go back to the login screen and quit the full application. So one other thing that we should do just to show how we can pass data between the forms, if we go to the student form and when it's running, there's nowhere here that says the username or anything, so let's change it so that we get the name displaying for this. So what I like to do is have an instance variable that we'll just call string username set equal to null, and then we want to create a method that will allow us to set the username, which will pass in parameter to it in order for us to do that. And what we want to do is on the student form, check out the properties of this, so it's just called very unimaginatively jLabel1. And if we go back to our source, we can set jLabel1.set text to whatever text has been set in. So we've got a method that will allow us to set the username for it. We could have that username passed in as a parameter whenever it's been set up. So now what we can do is, when we use the login form, whenever we create this new student form, we can do sf dot set username. Now I've forgotten the name of what we called it. Yeah, set username. Set username equal to username, and this time when we run, the username that we've used should hopefully be displayed at the top in the J label which we just made there, which is a useful way of keeping the data that's been used to log in. Obviously, it doesn't really work very well because we're just typing any username and password in, but in the next video we'll look more at how we can connect with MySQL databases. The next thing that we're going to look at in the next video is these, the next forms that we want to create. We obviously have a button on here to add a new student, which we want to be able to click and have a new form load up that will allow us to type in data for a new student and do some checking to make sure that they don't exist in the database, etc. So hopefully you can follow that for a start.